Welcome, welcome to Cullivans Travels. My guests and I will try to unravel the story of satire. It's packed to the rafters, and if you don't laugh, well, there's no free drink after. See, bribery works. For the short of attention at the back of the class, the show's half the length of your average mass. The panel's the first orty you can remember, with no TV chefs or ex-boy band members.
Not even one?
Not even Nikki. So welcome humans of a Swiftian bent. This is starting to sound like that musical Rent. Before I drive this audience into dissent, I'd like you to know we are going to get on with the show.
Get on with the show.
Get on with the show. Get on with the show. Welcome to Cullivans Travels with me, Paddy Cullivan. The title of the show is a play on Gulliver's Travels by the Irish father of modern satire, Jonathan Swift, a book in which poor Lemuel Gulliver washes up on a series of bizarre islands full of antagonistic characters, much like my panel today. And what an island this is, where many of our politicians make Donald Trump look like the embodiment of intellectual composure, where our students study two subjects, Canada and Australia, and where that chronic emigration is rebranded using the Positive Ireland hashtag as seeing a bit of the world. But let's not go there. In the midst of this insanity, we're experiencing a golden age of Irish satire. Savage Eye, Irish Pictorial Weekly, Callan's Kicks, Waterford Whispers, and Republic of Telly, to name but 5. But does it have any effect at all on the national consciousness? Can satire really change things, or have we always been making people laugh without changing how they think? To help me answer this and other questions, I've assembled an expert panel of satirists, and first and least, a poet and comedian who has been writing satire for television, radio, and stage for over 20 years. Please welcome John Moynes.
Thank you.
And in keeping with best practice in Irish political life, where only 16% of the Dáil is made up of women TDs, we've decided to have a 16% female representation on this panel of 5. Please welcome Tara Flynn. Next up, we have a star and co-writer of The Savage Eye, who is also a stalwart of Irish Pictorial Weekly. Although you might mistake him for a Garda, please welcome John Calleary. Finally, a man originally from the bizarre island next to our own, whose credits as producer, director and writer include Not the 9 O'Clock News, Spitting Image and Bremner, Bird and Fortune. For the last 30 years, he's lived near Skjovesteen.
Skjovesteen, you culture.
Skjovesteen, County Kilkenny. Please welcome Sean Hardy. So I wanted to ask a general question to the panel. What is the difference between satire and comedy?
Paddy.
Is that a bit deep, is it?
Well, satire is a form of hexametric Latin verse in rhyming couplets, which was invented in 200 BC to stage plays, normally discussing what was going on in the early Roman Republic.
Which gets a lot of hits on YouTube.
Whereas comedy is funny wigs and people doing accents.
Guys, the difference between comedy and satire?
Well, we've just agreed comedy's funny.
Yeah.
Satire is like comedy with a disabled sticker on it. You're allowed to do things that comedy isn't allowed to do, just 'cause you're making a point.
The other thing with satire is you never get paid any repeat fees on it because it goes out of date very fast. So if you want to make money out of writing, don't write topical comedy.
Repeat fees?
Repeat fees.
There aren't even fees for this today.
Oh, I know. But if you had an eighth of an eighth of Father Ted, you wouldn't be here today either.
Okay, well, here's a boring definition. Comedy is personal and designed to make you laugh, and satire is the use of humour, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule. To whittle it down, satire makes you laugh while making you think.
You know, the Chinese do this better because in the ideograms they use in the language, the one they use for satire is the ideogram for laughter with the ideogram for knives. And they just stick the two of them together. So it's laughter with knives.
Laughter with knives?
That would have been a better title than Cullivans Travels, by the way.
But you know, But Paddy,
But then it wouldn't have my name in it.
That's what I mean when I say better.
We just keep saying Paddy Cullivan for branding. Paddy Cullivan. So Paddy Cullivan, I would take issue slightly with that definition, because I think satire can be personal. And it can certainly be a motivator to make satire, because I don't think you can make satire well without being really pissed off.
Oh, we know that, Tara.
No, but genuinely, I think unless something's really fired you up, it's not satire. It's just a little. Oh, look at the government. So unless that's why. Like, I mean, for me, I don't get fired up by party politics that much.
No.
So I couldn't write that kind of satire. You know, I just kind of go, oh yeah, the government's really annoying. But so I think satire has to be a bit personal.
Sean Hardy, how important was the post-war satire boom in Britain?
It was very important, because I grew up, I'm very old, as you know, and I grew up in the 1950s. In the 1950s, across the water, in that offshore island across the way, there were two kinds of people. There were people who did what they were told, and there were people who told you what to do. And that was essentially how the system worked. It had come through the empire, it had come through the war and all the rest of it. And it kind of started falling apart in the late 50s, and along came Beyond the Fringe, actually, was what really started it. I mean, before that, satire was punched, you know, it was cartoons of cannibals eating missionaries and men on desert islands. And politicians, when they were interviewed, there's famous footage of prime ministers being interviewed in the 50s, in which a man from the BBC, well-dressed, would turn up and he'd say, "Prime Minister, could you share with us your thoughts on how the country is these days?" And that was kind of the level at which politics took place. And then along comes Peter Cook, and he gets up on stage in about 1916, Beyond the Fringe, and he takes the piss out of Harold Macmillan. He says, "Look, this guy's a buffoon." So for me, Beyond the Fringe, that was the week that was, Private Eye, The Frost Report. Suddenly you thought, those guys are the enemy, you know.
Sean, your favourite clip from contemporary times is one of those programmes from Irish Pictorial Weekly. Why do you love it so much?
There's a whole bunch of stuff on television you can script in advance. There's been a murder, you interview someone in the street who says, "This is a terribly quiet area, this only ever happens down here." You hear that on the RTE News 7 nights a week. And so a sketch like that in Irish Pictorial, just every time you see Primetime doing that, you know, you think, oh yeah.
Let's hear the brilliant Eleanor Tiernan presenting one of those programmes.
Good evening and welcome to one of those programmes where boggers seem to have a go at each other on your behalf, but at the end of the day, they're just culchies. I'm joined tonight by himself and your man. If I could start with you, himself, what's this issue about your crowd having an issue with his crowd over the thing that you both do?
Well, we are in the hard business of making hard decisions. And in actual fact, it's a full-time job, consistently making hard decisions and looking like you're making the hard business of hard decisions.
And your man, your response?
Well, I think it's only fair that I first of all stutter a bit. But what I need to do here really is look very, very serious for the gone beans down the country that vote for me, because they need to see me on the television being serious about things, and they also need to see me and hear me using big words, which I will use, like emphasise and alleviate, indignation, and the fact that the big words that I'm using himself there probably wouldn't recognise them, seeing as he only done the group sort.
Himself, big words on the telly.
But look, we're all getting paid here, so, you know, we might at least try to make it look like we know something of what we're talking about. But of course I'm going to do it in a semi-jocular way to get the crowd on my side, but by saying you might as well set your alarm clock for Easter, that sort of thing, and get the crowd laughing and all that, you know.
Well, I think that's far too close to the truth. Far too close to the truth, so we're going to have to start a row. So, like, I'm going to say, no, I'll raise my voice. I'll raise my voice. You have to argue the cover in the bar, and I'll see you in the bar. I'll see you in the bar.
That's all we have time for. Thank you and good night.
She's not bad.
Paul's Pictorial Weekly ran on RT1 for 9 years throughout the 1970s, bringing us the Minister for Hardship, Richie Ruin, Cha and Mia, and was even blamed for giving Fianna Fáil an overall majority in 1977. Thanks, Paul's Pictorial Weekly. Tara, were you a fan?
I was much too young to be a fan, but I remember watching it. No, I was quite little, but what imprinted on me about it was things like Cha and Maya. I know you wouldn't know because you're not from
Maya,
Cork.
sorry, Maya.
Cha and Maya were two. It was like a way of dealing with serious stuff that you'd see on the news. A really funny way of dealing with serious stuff. Like two characters, Cha and Maya, they used to sit on park benches. In fact, they inspired the two characters that Eleanor and myself played in Irish Pictorial Weekly, because no one knew this, but they were called Sharon and Maya, just in our heads. It was never mentioned on the telly. Yeah, I remember the sketch-based nature of it, and I think Barry Murphy, when the idea for Irish Pictorial Weekly came up, that sort of idea of there's a person at a desk, which would have been Frank Hall back in the day. There's a person at a desk, sort of setting out what's going on, and then you break the sketches. So it became our format, really.
John, you're not a fan.
No,
of
I mean,
Pictorial Weekly.
I wasn't old enough to be a fan, but I'm old enough to hate it. And my problem with it is Frank Hall himself. Now, he was a strong Fianna Fáil supporter, and I don't think there's anything wrong with party supporters working in satire, but he shut down the show when Haughey became Taoiseach. He axed his own show because he didn't want to put the boot into Haughey in the same way he put the boot into Lynch and into Fine Gael. Haughey rewarded him by appointing him film censor, which is quite a well-paid job, and Frank Hall banned Life of Brian. I think we have this incredibly conservative view of satire in Ireland, where there are acceptable satirists like Frank Hall who get held up, and then there's the kind of the stuff, anything that goes out, say, on RTE2, you just pretend it's crap whether or not you've seen it, which you haven't seen it because it's on RTE2. But
I think, you see, for instance, I'm not holding up Frank Hall because I wouldn't have had politics back then. I simply wouldn't have had them. I would have had a teddy. It was more about dealing with the serious stuff in a funny way.
And you're a huge Dermot Morgan fan as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, who isn't? So Frank Kelly, Dermot Morgan, here we go.
Yeah, he was kind of the king. He was the kind of king of late 80s or mid 80s satire. He was also on the live mic too.
He was on the live mic. He used to pop up in all kinds of shows, and so everyone was aware of Dermot Morgan long before Father Ted. But of course, the pinnacle of it would have been Scrap Saturday.
Scrap Saturday. We're going to hear Dermot Morgan now. Usually you'll hear a Haughey clip, but we particularly love his Gerard Collins pleading with Albert not to ruin the Fianna Fáil party.
Oh, Albert. This is me, Gerard, speaking to you, Albert. Howl. Oh, you are men of stone. Albert, you're a howl with this carry on yourself. I beg you, please, even now, desist. Draw back. Even now. You'll wreck the party, so you will. You're showing frightful political immaturity. How sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless Minister for Finance. Blow winds, crack your cheeks. How rage you hurricanes. Spout fire, spit rain, spout. You'll burst the party. You're going to burst it. That's what you're going to do. You'll wreck it. Burning, scalding, stench, corruption, fie. I myself have no leadership ambition.
John Cleary. Yes. How important is it to have a great memory bank of accents? And I want you to answer this in the voice of Jerry Adams.
I have no memory whatsoever. I have no accents. I've never been involved in an accent. In fact, I've taken out insurance against accent prevention, it's called, and I have no involvement in it. How dare you bring this up now? And a general accent. I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, I've never been in the ICA.
With David McSavage's family ties to politics, he had amazing insight into his political mind and was able to distill Irish voting patterns into 14 seconds.
How can your man run again? I thought he was a convicted criminal or something.
He fixed the road.
But sure, he robbed money.
What are you talking about? My father voted for his father, and you'll vote for his son. He fixed the road.
He fixed the road.
Fixed the road, yeah.
But how depressingly brilliant the Savage I was. You're an excellent actor, John, I have to say. But as I mentioned earlier, you get typecast in the role of guard. Flann O'Brien wrote The Third Policeman about a guard that was half man, half bicycle. So I wanted to ask you, are guards actually human, or are they kind of more of a kind of robot culty hybrid?
Guards, I don't know. They're just guards. They're just pieces of the Irish landscape with uniforms on. They're just hedges and ditches dressed up. Wandering around leaning on stuff and nodding and pushing their caps up over the things. And then there's lads from Dublin who join the guards, and then they go down to Templemore and they get a culty accent. That's a fact. Because you know how there's a priest accent which is from the west of Ireland. Yeah. We're all gathered here today to express something in that direction. And guards then lads who are from Dublin and Story and on anyways, and they go down to Templemore for it, and they come up and they go, what are you doing? Look, where are you going? But do you know what speed you were doing? No, do you? No. None of us know. And I love this country for that. Again, when I was talking about that attitude, I've done so much stuff on cops. Like one time though, this just sprung to mind. One time we were in uniforms, me and Bernard O'Shea of Bernard O'Shea fame. We were in cop uniforms, and we got a lift off a producer into town, RT doing a sketch in town, and she went off to do something, and she left us standing there in Christchurch in cop uniforms, which we didn't think anything of because we were actors. And then everyone's "Hey, go over to him, he's after breaking that window." And we're going, "We're not cops," and they're going, "You fuck off." It's very hard to explain you're not a cop when you're a cop.
When you're dressed as a cop.
When you're dressed like a cop, full uniform. Anyway, there's so many sketches on cops and bits and bobs. And then I tried to be an actor for a while and do auditions for things and films and such like. And then the brilliant hero of mine, Mr. Ken Loach, they made a movie in Sligo about 2 or 3 years ago. And I got a call about that. And I did an audition and so on. So I did 3 auditions, in fact. And I thought, oh, this is brilliant. And then I got a call. Ken would like you on set for a couple of days. And I was going, oh, this is class. Brilliant film set in 1930. He wants you to play a policeman. It's going, oh, here. I love it in Ireland because I drive around the country a lot doing stand-up, and it's always nighttime, and there's always cops. And this is the thing about people not caring about their jobs. And we've done so much, rip on Gardaí and the whole lot. You'd expect them to be a little annoyed about it. But they love it. Same as what you're talking about with politicians. They want to be part of it. And you get stopped on the road. And I got stopped recently in Mullingar, middle of the night, and there's cops on the road, and they're like senior guys, guys without uniforms on, guys with kind of bomber jackets and, possibly know how to use a weapon kind of crack. And they lean into the car and they see me and they just start quoting lines that I wrote about them. They look at me and they say, "Now, D!" Ah! And they wave me on as they're screaming lines that I wrote about them. And I'm thinking, this is class. I'm going to move here. What?
Had your drink taken?
I had no drink taken. Why not? It's Christmas.
Let's hear one of those Garda clips from the Savage Eye with guards learning how to be guards.
You have drink taken. All together. You have drink taken. You try it now. You have drink taken. Embrace your inner culture.
You have drink taken. You have drink taken.
Use the wind and rain.
You have drink taken.
That's not bad now. All together now. Lose your attitude. So you try it on your own now. You try it on your own. Lose the attitude.
Lose the attitude.
Come on.
Lose the attitude.
No, that's no good now. Go on now. Try it again.
Lose the attitude.
There's a guard in there, someone trying to get out. Go on, try it again.
Lose the attitude.
There you go now.
Indeed.
In the early 1990s, Irish satire collided with the stand-up comedy explosion, and one outlet for that was Shea Healy's legendary Nighthawks. One of the great discoveries from that show was Tyrone man Kevin McAleer, whose Ulster drawl had the country in bits. John Moynes, he was a particular favourite of yours.
Yeah, and it's my family come from the same neck of the woods. And so what really struck home to me about McAleer was that, he sounded like all my relatives. So suddenly, that kind of comedy wasn't coming out of London. It wasn't coming out of fancy foreign places like that. It suddenly became local. And then the way he made it about absolutely nothing at all except people's blind ability to accept whatever is going on around themselves and just regurgitate, babble about that as if they're somehow commenting. So to some people it might necessarily look like satire because he doesn't seem to deal with any big issues, but it's about passive acceptance of the system, and I love that accent.
Let's hear Kevin McAleer talking about his favourite TV programme, Closed Down.
Was there programmes on that television? Yes. Was the short, pithy answer to that particular old riddle. Oh, God, programmes. Programmes wasn't the word. I can't remember what the word was. But it wasn't programmes, no. All films, stories, news, advertisements, more news. Closed Down. Aye. Closed Down was damn good now. That was on, oh God, most of the night now. Funny enough, I noticed that now about Closed Down. And there was a bad old hum. Was the only way you could describe it now. Off that programme now. Oh God, a high-pitched monotonous whine. Now, all night sustained indefinitely, a continuous monotonous tone now. And it was hard to listen to it, now, to be honest. You couldn't listen to it, no. But we listened to it anyway, aye.
Often satire collides with history, and 2016 has provided ample fodder for satire. The Rubber Bandits' recent mockumentary on the 1916 Rising is a case in point. But the government's half-hearted attempt at commemoration while thinking only of getting re-elected has been another endless source of fun. From Callan's kicks, Oliver Callan's uncanny end of Kenny lets people know what they had in mind.
Great honour to be here at the launch of the Oyster Rising Festival, where we remember the oysters eaten at Free State dinners in the last 100 years. 2016 will be no different. After we march our privates up and down O'Connell Street in commemoration of the yoke, we shall let the army lads sleep in their cars while we head up to Dublin Castle and have an 18-course dinner with some Unionists and members of the royal family. During the speeches, I will mention the war, the Great War, of course, before Riverdance and Macnas stage a Kailura of lonely fiddles and stray hipsters playing the ukulele. President Michael D shall read the works of Ireland's only poet, Seamus Heaney, and there'll be Ferris wheels and face painting on Mountjoy Square for the children walking barefoot down Sean McDermott Street. There'll be dancing at Newlands Crossroads, and the Red Cow Roundabout will be renamed the John Redmond Roundabout. Furthermore, I can't hear myself think with this racket. Right, plan B, lads, we're getting out of here. Save the canapes and the bubbly. It's what Thomas Clark would have wanted.
I've noticed a thing over the years, and it doesn't matter who's in government and who's in opposition, but if you slag off a government party, their supporters kind of expect it, and they accept that that's the thing that happens. It's when you insult an opposition party, their supporters get their backs up, and it's regardless of who's in government and regardless of how well or badly the country is doing.
I think that's very true. I think that's very true because the opposition kind of have the halo. They don't actually get down and dirty and do this stuff. So they're very sensitive about their moral virtue. They like to have the moral high ground, the opposition.
Of course, Tara, you've got into loads of trouble with your satire.
Yeah, well, I think, like we were saying earlier, when the tide has turned a bit and people feel maybe that their position of power has shifted or is shifting, they can feel threatened. So that's a kind of a dangerous thing to point out. I mean, I get nasty things said to me all the time on social media, but you kind of expect that there. It's like you open the door to a beautiful garden and some slugs will get in. So you have to expect a bit of that. If you have the fresh air, you have to have the slugs. The scariest times is when it comes out into the real world. People come up to me or my family and say stuff. And I have had one death threat after a racist B&B. I was told I should end up in a shallow grave. So, is that trouble? I guess.
Yes, it is.
So, I mean, but there again, it's when you point out that someone maybe isn't as up on a pedestal as they feel they are, then they don't like it. And that's when they get nasty. Social issues are things that touch people, myself or people I know directly, then that really fires me up. And my husband, who is African American, received racist abuse, and I wanted him to go to the guards. That's actually what I wanted to happen. And when he said, "Oh, this kind of thing happens all the time."
Well, it does, though,
It does. Racism's very bad, John. It's very, very bad.
Guard.
It's very bad. Yeah. You'd see it,
We're
of course.
looking into it.
Yeah.
No, we've looked into it. We can't see anything. Carry on.
That was quick. Here's a bit of racist B&B.
When did you get the idea to make it a racist B&B?
Once the Polish builders had all gone home and it was just ourselves and the Nigerians left, we noticed that there were a lot of racists in Ireland who weren't afraid to stand up and be counted. It's all the rage. We spotted a gap in the market and we were always a bit racist ourselves. So from there it was just a hop, skip and a jump to make the B&B as racist as possible, but in a warm, welcoming kind of a way.
What do you mean?
We try and turn people away before they get here, if possible. We don't want to disappoint anyone. So we ask them a few questions on the phone, like, do you take the sun well? Or could you clap along to this Michael Jackson track? And if they have fantastic rhythm or they sound a bit tanned, we tell them that there's a festival on, that we're full.
Finally,
Hooray, hooray for satire.
finally, on that cheery note, there are moments when satire overtakes events and becomes the event. The daddy of Irish satire at the moment is, of course, Barry Murphy of Mr. Trellis, Après Match, The 11th Hour, and Pictorial, particularly his German alter ego, Gunther Grun. I'll never forget being in Toner's pub in 2012 as Ireland was booted out of the European Championships, and Barry, dressed as Angela Merkel, and Gunther came on the screen and scared the living bejesus out of us with this.
Hello, little pixie heads. And so your Euro 2012 dream comes to an end and it's back to reality. Well, reality costs and somebody has to pay. You. If I was you, I'd put down the potato and listen. Yes, once again, it's time to tighten the belt. Or in your case, the string. I said put down the potato, Scoop Monkey. You have to shut down the RTE, it's too expensive.
So there we have it, the joy and the horror of satire. I know we've barely scratched the surface, but I would like you to thank my wonderful guests. Sean Hardy. Tara Flynn. John Calleary. And John Moynes. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes and to our wonderful live-ish audience. See you for more Cullivans Travels once we can afford the ticket.